Seven.
Over here. Seven. Look here. Look here. Seven. Look here. Over here. Over here. Seven. Smile.
Keeping a sitcom fresh season after season, not easy. Eventually, every writer's room hits that point where they think, well, these two haven't hooked up yet. Some risks pay off, others nearly torch the entire show. From awkward character reboots to plot twists that nobody asked for, I'm Seven McAllister for Seven Entertainment. Let's take a look at 7 decisions that almost wrecked popular sitcoms. Now, before we get into that, we appreciate your support, so if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and give a sweet little nudge to that notification bell. Number 1. Modern Mistake. Back in 2018, the showrunners of Modern Family teased a major character death coming in Season 10. The media ran with it, fans clutched their pearls, and everyone braced for impact. Would it be Jay? Would it be Gloria? Would it be Manny? Oh, please let it be Manny. Surely, someone whose absence would rip a hole in this oversized mockumentary-shaped heart of ours. Then the episode aired, and the big tragic death was Dee Dee Pritchard. Mitchell and Claire's mostly off-screen, mildly unpleasant mom who showed up once every few seasons to scowl, cause a scene, and then disappear again like a sitcom Bigfoot. That was the major death. To say that fans were underwhelmed was putting it lightly. Devastating loss is how the producers hyped it. What we got was more of a mildly inconvenient scheduling conflict. They didn't even bring her on for a final appearance. Nah, she dies off screen during a trip and it's revealed during a phone call. Problem wasn't just that Dee Dee died, it's that the writers made the cardinal sin of overpromising and under-delivering. In a show with a massive ensemble cast where half the characters could have dropped dead mid-scene and it would have genuinely shaken things up, they hyped This Is Us level tearjerker and gave us we're sorry, Shelley Long didn't want to come back shrug. Lesson learned: if your show has like 50 main characters, don't tease a shocking death unless you're ready to part with someone that the audience doesn't have to Google. Number 2. Good start? Nope. When Parks and Recreation debuted in 2009, it had all the ingredients of a hit. A mockumentary format from the creators of The Office, a cast of rising stars, and Amy Poehler fresh off of her SNL run. But something was off. In Season 1, Leslie Knope was portrayed as an awkward, clueless bureaucrat, a well-meaning buffoon whose earnestness often led to chaos. The intention may have been lovable incompetence. The audiences did not love it. Critics saw Leslie as a Michael Scott knockoff without the same depth or spark. The show was labeled a letdown. Behind the scenes, the creators knew that something had to change. Heading into Season 2, the Parks and Rec team made a bold, deliberate shift. They recalibrated Leslie Knope. Instead of mocking her ambition, the writers leaned into it. Leslie became smart, capable, driven, not a punchline, but a lovable underdog whose optimism was now a strength, not a flaw. The tone of the show followed suit. The series stopped punching down and started punching up, taking swipes at gridlock government, small-town dysfunction, and bureaucracy, but always with heart. It wasn't just Leslie who evolved, supporting characters who had been one note in Season 1 like April, Tom, and Ron were fleshed out with distinct personalities and motivations. The workplace became a warm, weird family, and Pawnee went from a generic town to a hilariously bizarre character in its own right. By trusting their characters and committing to sincerity over snark, Parks and Rec transformed from a wobbly Office clone into one of the most beloved sitcoms of its era. It's now remembered not for its rocky start, but for being the show that made us believe that government could work if it were run by Leslie Knope and powered by waffles. Number 3. Mo Money, Mo Problems. Yes, the infamous lottery season of Roseanne, TV's equivalent of watching your favorite neighborhood dive bar get bought by a tech bro and turned into a kombucha lounge. For 8 glorious seasons, Roseanne was a gritty, hilarious, painfully honest portrayal of working-class America. The Connor scraped by, made ends almost meet, and still managed to be funnier and more relatable than most sitcom families who somehow lived in mansions without ever going to work. Then Season 9 hit, and boom! Connors won the lottery. Instead of meatloaf dinners and overdue bills, we got Roseanne hanging out with actual celebrities and swanning around in designer clothes. Remember when the biggest drama used to be the electric bill or Becky quitting school. Suddenly, we were dealing with royalty, yachts, and absurd fantasy sequences like it was Dynasty on a discount budget. Oh, and poor Dan, John Goodman, bless his heart, clearly saw the writing on the wall, or more accurately, the flaming wreckage in the script, and pieced out for half the season. Although, judging by that haircut, it looks like he made the most of his time off by filming The Big Lebowski. Here's the kicker. The finale tried to retroactively make the nonsense deep by revealing that everything that had happened, the lottery, the weirdness, all of it, was Roseanne's novel, a fantasy she wrote to cope with Dan's death that had happened when he had a heart attack at the end of season 8. So Dan was casually revealed to be dead in the finale. By the way, none of this was real, Dan's dead, and this whole season was basically my grief hallucination. Cool. Thanks for that, I guess. It was a Hail Mary that tried to be profound but landed somewhere between, wait, what? And, oh, come on. That's why it's on a list of moments that almost killed show, because at least they tried to fix it. The damage was done. Instead of going out as the sharpest blue-collar sitcom of all time, Roseanne face planted into a glittery, plot-twisting mess. Number 4. They Britted Season 4. The gas leak year, or as Community fans call it, the season that shall not be named. Season 4 of Community is the television equivalent of when your favorite band replaces the lead singer with a guy who only thinks he gets the vibe, but mostly just yells the lyrics and forgets the melody. The show that used to juggle genre parodies, razor-sharp wit, and genuine emotional beats turned into a watered-down cosplay of itself. Characters felt off, jokes felt forced, and the whole thing reeked of like a fan fiction, but not like the good, sexy kind. So what happened? Well, Dan Harmon, the chaotic genius behind the show, was fired after season 3 due to a perfect storm of behind-the-scenes friction, missed deadlines, and general Dan Harmonness. NBC, thinking the show could just run fine without the neurotic glue holding it together, handed the reins to new showrunners who apparently thought meta just meant reference the show a lot. The result was a season full of hollow callbacks, character regressions, and plots that felt like bad simulations of classic Community episodes. Abed wasn't a brilliant TV savant anymore, he was just weird. Jeff went from lovable jerk to just plain old jerk, and Britta somehow got dumber. Again, Magic Community had always been its ability to take outrageous concepts, paintball wars, documentary parodies, timelines collapsing upon themselves, and ground them in character development and real emotion. But in season 4, every attempt at cleverness landed like a lead balloon in the Dreamatorium. It wasn't terrible television in the grand scheme of things, but by Community standards, it was like showing up to your gourmet pop culture dinner and getting lukewarm buttered noodles with a wink to the camera. Luckily, the show itself was fully aware of the dumpster fire and leaned into it once Harmon returned in season 5. They literally dubbed season 4 the gas leak year in universe, like the characters had all been operating under carbon monoxide poisoning. It was a beautiful but bitter little apology and one of the pettiest, most satisfying bits of meta writing ever televised. Number 5. Friends with Benefits. So no one told you life was going to be this way, your job's a joke, you're broke, your love life's DOA, haha, easily in my top 10 favorite Rembrandt songs of all time. Now, I know the youngins are rediscovering Friends on streaming services, but if you're Gen X, this show was such a big part of our growing up experience. Back in the early seasons, Ross Geller was the gold standard of 90s sitcom romance. He was the sweet, nerdy paleontologist with a thing for dinosaurs and just one woman, Rachel Green. The guy pined for her throughout high school, bought her that stupidly expensive brooch, who's supposed to be the sensitive, romantic counterpoint to Joey's serial dating and Chandler's sarcasm. Every girl watching thought, oh, why can't I just find a guy like Ross? Until they realized, oh no, they can, and it's terrible. The downward spiral began with the break. Yes, we get it, Ross thought Rachel was the one, but instead of moping or eating ice cream after they broke up like you would if you were a normal sitcom sad boy, he dove headfirst into Chloe's very 90s haircut. And from that point on, his charming awkwardness curdled into something much weirder. He became possessive, paranoid, and whiny. Basically, every woman who had ever been cheated on had a reason to hate him, and it was way too late to pivot. By the time he was screaming about lobsters and sabotaging Rachel's job prospects, the audience had collectively rebranded him from Dream Boyfriend to Walking Red Flag in leather pants. Just when you thought the writers had learned their lesson about turning their nice guy leads into creepy goofs, they had the gall to consider having Chandler cheat on Monica. Chandler Bing, same guy who spent 5 seasons slowly evolving from commitment phobe to adorable husband material. There was a storyline pitched and wisely scrapped where Chandler cheats on Monica. Fortunately, Matthew Perry realized this was a dumb idea and the audience would never forgive his character, so he went to the writers and had it axed, because nothing says character assassination like retroactively making your most stable couple totally unwatchable. It's like they saw what happened to Ross and thought, maybe we shouldn't have 2 train wrecks. Thankfully, the writers pulled back before unleashing another we were on a break scenario on our eyeballs. Chandler stayed faithful, Ross stayed annoying, and Joey just got dumber and dumber. Number 6, PB and J and C. Just to show that bad ideas in writer rooms weren't exclusive to the 90s, a similar scenario happened with The Office. That could have equally led to disaster, because in a haze of either creative desperation or unhinged caffeine highs, they seriously considered the implication of having Jim Halpert cheat on Pam Beasley Halpert. That's right, America's sweetheart slacker turned salesman was almost going to hook up with Kathy, because nothing says happily ever after like completely torching 9 seasons of emotional investment for one last gasp at manufactured tension. Now let's be honest, Jim and Pam were the heart of the show. Sure, they got a little boring once they settled into domestic bliss, but it's not a flaw. That's really what we wanted for them. They'd earned their stability, watching them evolve from awkward glances across desks to wedding bells and babies was the reward for sticking with this paper company soap opera through all the Meredith rabies scares and Andy banjo solos. Now, the rumor for years was that an affair was scripted, but John Krasinski pulled a Chandler Bing and put a stop to it. But years later, on the Office Ladies podcast, Jenna Fisher would clear up the rumor, insisting that Jim was never going to cheat, but he was going to go further than either she or Krasinski was comfortable with. She would say, Jim was never going to have an affair with or hook up with Kathy. However, there were things about the proposed storyline that did bump me and John the wrong way. In the very first drafts, there was a lot more kind of teasing, like Willie. Is he being charmed by her? Is he flirting with her, or is he just being a nice guy? In the version, he's so clear and comfortable, and everything's a giant no every time she does something, but in the original script, there was a little bit more repartee. Fisher would go on to say that her and Krasinski were not happy with the flirting draft, and thought that even the hint of infidelity was a betrayal of what the audience expected or wanted. And you know what? They were right. We had so little to be happy about in those later years without Michael Scott. Let that be a lesson to TV writers everywhere. Just because you can break our hearts doesn't mean you should, especially not with Kathy, and definitely not with Boom Mike Bryan. Number 7, see more bad decisions. Armin Tamzarian, the name that lives in infamy among Simpsons fans the day Springfield jumped the monorail, nuked continuity, and had the writers saying, give us a break, the show's going to go on for another 40 seasons, we'll use any plot we can possibly get. Sorry, let's rewind. Season 9 of The Simpsons, a time when the show was still coasting on its golden era fumes, enter The Principal and the Pauper, an episode that asked the deeply unnecessary question, what if Seymour Skinner wasn't Seymour Skinner? Haha, plot twist, he's actually a former street punk named Armin Tamzarian who stole the real Skinner's identity after the real one was presumed dead. And then, surprise, the real Skinner comes back and he's just as bland and beige as his name suggests. So of course, the town reacts the only logical way by sending the real Skinner out of town on a rail. Then they declare that no one will ever speak of this again. And that's not a joke. That's literally the last line of the episode. The writers knew this was a canon-breaking mess, so instead of fixing it, they just lampshaded it like a cartoon mob burying a body in the woods. Why'd they do it? Allegedly, it was meant to be a clever meta-commentary on identity, authority, and audience expectations, but it landed with the grace of the Homer, car built for Homer. Fans weren't amused, they were furious. The Simpsons had always played with logic, but this felt like betrayal. Principal Skinner, for all his stiff, repressed neurosis, was a beloved, complex character. Suddenly making him a fraud named Armin Tamzarian felt like the writers making twists for the sake of making twists. Even Matt Groening hated it. Groening himself, the creator of the entire show, thought it was a bad call. That's like George Lucas saying, yeah, maybe Greedo shooting first was dumb. Episode's now a case study in what happens when writers get too clever for their own good, when they decide that being edgy is more important than respecting the world they built. Sure, The Simpsons rebounded, but Armin Tamzarian remains a scar on the show's legacy, and a self-inflicted wound at that. Well, there's our list, and I leave out any other decisions that almost wrecked popular shows. If so, please leave them in the comments section below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please do us a solid and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tippity-tap that notification bell. Until next time, I'm Seven McAllister for 7 Entertainment saying bye-bye.